No, we're talking about here, though. We're talking about video games. We're talking about Crash Bandicoot N.Sane Trilogy and the people responsible for bringing it back to us. Vicarious Visions. We've got Jen and Dan. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You guys have been showing off the game. So for those who maybe missed Crash Bandicoot around the first time, do you want to give a quick primer on what it is and what the N.Sane Trilogy is?
Yeah, so Crash Bandicoot was a majorly iconic franchise. I can't imagine there's anyone out there that doesn't know who he is, but yeah, he was a mascot.
Kids these days,
yeah,
am I
kids
right?
these days, seriously. He was a mascot character, a platformer, really revolutionized platforming by going 3D into and out of the camera. Just a really amazing platformer.
Also notable because it was really it's fun, it's irreverent, it's I don't know, it was one of the games I always thought that helped to put Naughty Dog really on the map. And you guys are going to be bringing it back. You're remastering the trilogy of games, so no mean feat. What kind of work is going into that to make it fresh for new audiences?
Well, we've certainly taken the game and pretty much rebuilt it from the ground up to meet kind of modern gamers' expectations, right? So, it has top-of-the-line graphics, audio. It feels and plays just as it did 20 years ago. But, we've certainly made some quality of life improvements, I guess is the best way to, the first game, as an example, used passwords. I don't think the kids these days would care much for passwords. So we have a safe game system.
No fruit on a grid, man?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not bringing back the fruit on a grid system. But this is, you have been calling it a remaster plus. You're talking about these quality of life improvements. One of the things that we always talk about with these remasters and remakes is making the game the way you remember it playing versus the way it actually played.
Absolutely.
Our memories are very rosy.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
One of my favorite examples of it is, when you go back and you play the PS3 remake of Shadow of the Colossus. I'm like, yeah, this is how Shadow of the Colossus played, but no, they actually tightened up the camera a little bit, tightened up the control a little bit.
Yeah.
What were some of these sort of quality of life improvements that you wanted to bring to this remaster?
I mean, ditching the passwords aside.
Right. Certainly we tried to make improvements to the controls wherever we could while still preserving, that original feel. One of the key things we actually did is really focused in on analog support. Most people who pick up a controller these days go right for the analog sticks, but the original games were designed with digital in mind. So we had to make sure that analog really worked with all the game modes, and there's a whole bunch of game modes in that game. So beyond that, I mean, we've added time trials everywhere. We've got leaderboards. Any other?
Yeah, well, for those of you who remember it being a little bit unforgiving, there was...
It's a very kind way of putting it.
Yes.
Hello.
There was a dynamic difficulty adjustment that was added later on, but we brought that through all three games. So just when you think you're about to throw the controller at the screen, you might actually get, a continue box that you can
So N.Sane Trilogy saving TV screens everywhere.
Yes.
One of my favorite moments, I think one of a lot of people's favorite moments in Uncharted 4 was the very early moment where, oh my gosh, I'm playing the first level of Crash Bandicoot. This is insane to me. I love this. I'm having so much fun. Naughty Dog obviously really loves their roots, really loves where they came from. How much did you work with them? How much were they involved? Did they were just kind of like, we love this and we love what you're doing and we're hanging back?
Like, we trust you. Take good care of it.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that up front. We worked directly with Sony on this, and Sony and Naughty Dog gave us our space. But this is Naughty Dog's creation, so before we went public with anything, we would always go to Naughty Dog and say, hey guys, here's what we got. What do you think? And each time we went to them, they loved it, and that was just the absolute best praise you could get, and really gave us the confidence that when we put it out to the public that people are going to go nuts for
Getting
it.
that endorsement was very important to us, so it was really nice, and I think they were genuinely touched and happy that we gave it so much love and care.
It looks absolutely beautiful. We're watching some of the trailer footage right now.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of spiritual successors to classic platformers come out recently. We had our ukuleles come out, things like that. What do you think is kind of the impetus now? Why do people kind of want these classic platformers coming back now? What made it interesting to you to work on one of these again?
Well, I think for me personally, you know, I have some history with Crash. After Naughty Dog left the franchise, I worked on a few of the sequels through Vivendi. So for me, it was like a homecoming. I absolutely loved the franchise, and it was just an honor to be able to bring it back and introduce Crash to new audiences. And I think also that's kind of our overall impetus, I guess, is it's been 20 years.
Yeah, I think that's it. You know, when 20 years goes by, there's this, you know, desire for nostalgia, the things from our youth that we want to recapture. And, you know, we brought Crash back in Skylanders Imaginators last year, you know, giving parents an opportunity to introduce their favorite, you know, character to their kids. And there was a great response. And so, you know, now's just the perfect time. We had a passionate team who had a history with it, and it just made sense.
Yeah. Make a whole bunch of new Crash fans now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, Anthony, you mentioned earlier there are a lot of there's almost like a revival going on right now. A lot of these early sort of 3D open world games, well, open-ish world games are making a huge comeback. And then the trick with a remaster or a remake in general is, again, we have these very rosy memories. We remember it playing a certain way or controlling a certain way. And you mentioned that you had to, for example, make it all work with analog sticks. What are some of the other tweaks that you have to make that people don't remember? Maybe some of the more difficult, more challenging aspects of the game to deal with that you don't want them to remember. Like they go away. They don't exist anymore.
Right. So what we found is we wanted to preserve the challenge, but you've got to kind of divorce challenge from frustration. There's a number of different reasons why people might get frustrated. And so one of the ones that we sought to attack early on was that kind of the game communicating what is expected of you.
Oh my gosh, look how good Tiny looks. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Look at how good Tiny looks. We'll come back in just a moment. That's amazing. That looks so good, you guys. Oh, this frustrated me. Yeah, talk about divorcing difficulty from frustration.
Right.
Remember those lines running at me.
Yes. So there were cases, especially in the earlier games, where bosses or AI or even some of the puzzles wouldn't necessarily say what you needed to do, and you would try and overcome it, and the game would smack you down and say try again without really telling you any information.
Right track.
Yeah. So to give you a good example, I mean, there's a boss later in the first game named Pinstripe. He has a Gatling gun.
Yeah, he does.
And
yeah,
you know, we found players actually didn't know exactly when he was vulnerable. So we just went in and added a few more VFX to, in a cartoon fashion, illustrate that, you know, he was now vulnerable.
Couple of tells.
Yeah, a couple of tells.
Look at how beautiful that looks with that lighting.
Yeah.
God, that's gorgeous.
Yeah.
That's, you guys did just such a really amazing job.
Thank you.
It's so beautiful.
No,
I do appreciate a lot of these games coming back too, in a way that
the Great Wall level.
Again, these are formative for a lot of us who we grew up playing these games. They have a very fond place in our hearts, but it's difficult to go back and play the originals, not only because gamer sensibilities have changed in terms of what constitutes frustrating gameplay and what is totally okay, but also the graphics. You remember the graphics looking the best, like the most realistic, best thing ever. And if you were to go back to that in its original state, it might kind of tarnish the memory a little bit. So this is a way that you can look at it the way you remember it.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, you know, the way we thought about this is, you know, at the time, Naughty Dog really pushed the limitations of the hardware and made the most beautiful game for its time. And so when we thought about we're bringing it back, we need to do something similar. So we spent some time investing in technology. We invested in, you know, getting the fur to look cute and fuzzy on all the animals and on Crash himself, as well as you know, some great shader technology to make the reflections look great. The ice levels look beautiful.
Yeah, because at that point, when you're talking about the original PS1, you're talking about a 320 by 240 resolution. There was nothing you could reuse. There was almost nothing you could look at and say like, well, I clearly understand what this texture is, because the resolution just wasn't there. You must have been interpreting so many details.
Yes, absolutely. And in order to interpret those details, you know, the team actually not only went back to concept art, but we went back to the things that inspired Naughty Dog. You know, we got to sit down and watch a bunch of cartoons, you know, Looney Tunes, Animaniacs.
Oh, work. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's research.
Oh, it totally was research.
But certainly they were very inspired by that squashy, stretchy animation, and so, you know, again, we invested more into our animation rigs, and so, you know, you'll see it when you watch the cinematics. Lots more going on with the rigs in those animations.
Yeah,
they look great.
We're very proud of them.
It looks absolutely beautiful. It's right around the corner, right?
It is.
When do we get to get our hands on the N.Sane Trilogy?
June 30th.
That would be June 30th. Yeah. It's like 16
that's
days.
wow, that's really close.
Yeah, you can pre-order now, but a couple of weeks and it's out.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming by, Jennifer and Dan. We really appreciate it. We're looking so forward to it. Just watching that gameplay was bringing me back. That
I think we lost you there for a little bit.
I kind of went off into my own little place there.